The morning I inherited my grandfather's 1,100-acre Montana ranch, I believed I was receiving a lifetime of memories and responsibility. The land had remained in our family for generations, stretching across forests, meadows, and mountain trails. I had no idea someone else had quietly begun treating part of it as their own. During my first week, I rode across the ranch inspecting fences, livestock areas, and old logging roads. Everything looked familiar until I reached the eastern boundary. There, I found a paved road and decorative entrance sign that definitely hadn't existed years ago. Curious, I followed the road farther into my property. Instead of open pasture, I discovered walking trails, picnic benches, landscape gardens, and a neighborhood playground. Every improvement appeared professionally built. An elderly ranch neighbor recognized me immediately. He quietly explained that the nearby HOA had expanded little by little over several years, while everyone believed the property owner had permanently moved away. Hearing those words changed everything. I drove straight to the county records office to review every survey, deed, and recorded easement connected to the ranch. The clerk produced decades of carefully preserved documents. The legal boundaries looked exactly as my grandfather had always described them. The records confirmed my suspicion. No recorded easement allowed the HOA to build roads, trails, or recreational facilities on my ranch. The improvements existed only because nobody had challenged them. Before taking any action, I hired a licensed land survey company to inspect the entire eastern boundary. I wanted every decision supported by professional evidence instead of assumptions. Accuracy mattered more than speed. Over several days, the surveyors located original steel property markers buried beneath years of grass and brush. Modern GPS measurements matched the historic ranch maps almost perfectly. The HOA facilities extended hundreds of feet inside my land. With a completed survey in hand, I met with an experienced property rights attorney. She carefully compared the new measurements with the historic deeds and confirmed that the evidence strongly supported my ownership. Her advice was to document everything before contacting the HOA. Together, we prepared a formal notice requesting that the HOA stop expanding onto the disputed area while ownership questions were resolved. We also invited the board to discuss a peaceful solution before legal proceedings became necessary. I hoped cooperation would prevail. 1 week later, the HOA board invited me to attend a meeting at their clubhouse. I arrived carrying the survey reports, historic deeds, and legal notice. I hoped the facts alone would settle the disagreement. Rebecca Collins confidently insisted the community had used the land for years and believed the improvements benefited everyone. I calmly explained that long-term use did not automatically create ownership. The room became noticeably quieter. I placed the survey maps on the table and pointed directly to the original boundary markers. Several board members leaned forward as they realized the trails and recreation areas extended well beyond the HOA property lines. The discussion suddenly became much more serious. Instead of negotiating, the board voted to reject my request and continue claiming the disputed land. Their decision surprised even a few homeowners attending the meeting. I quietly gathered my documents and thanked everyone for their time. The following morning, my attorney filed a lawsuit asking the court to confirm the ranch boundaries and determine the proper legal resolution. As I rode across the property once again, I knew the next chapter would be decided by evidence rather than emotion. Within days of filing the lawsuit, the HOA hired its own legal team. Rebecca publicly insisted the community had done nothing wrong and claimed the disputed land had been used openly for years. My attorney reminded me that confidence wasn't evidence. The court ordered both parties to exchange every survey, deed, and recorded agreement before the first hearing. Historic ranch records, aerial photographs, and county maps filled several large binders. Years of property history were finally coming into the open. The HOA submitted neighborhood plats, landscaping plans, and maintenance records. However, none of the documents granted permission to build parks, trails, or roads on my ranch. My attorney quietly smiled as she organized evidence. The judge appointed an independent surveying company to verify both sides' claims. Neither party could influence the results. Everyone agreed to accept the measurements exactly as they were recorded. After several days of field work, the independent survey matched my original survey almost perfectly. The HOA's walking trails, playground, storage building, and part entrance road all extended well inside my property. The evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. The courtroom filled early on the morning of the first hearing. Ranchers, homeowner reporters, and county officials quietly watched as both legal teams prepared their evidence. The dispute had become one of the county's biggest stories. My attorney presented the original ranch deed signed decades earlier, followed by tax records and historic survey maps. Every document identified the same eastern boundary. The judge examined each exhibit carefully before asking the HOA to respond. The HOA argued that years of uninterrupted public use had made the improvements part of the neighborhood. My attorney responded that long-term use alone did not transfer ownership, where no recorded easement existed. The courtroom remained silent. The independent surveyor testified under oath, explaining that original steel boundary markers perfectly aligned with modern GPS measurements. His findings confirmed that the disputed improvements stood on ranch property. There was no disagreement between the surveys. Then an unexpected exhibit appeared. Archived HOA planning documents showed that early board members had questioned the eastern boundary before construction began, rather than delaying the project. They approved it while planning to resolve ownership later. Several homeowners exchanged worried looks as the documents were read aloud. Many admitted they had always assumed the HOA had verified the land before building community facilities. Confidence in the board began to fade. Following the testimony, the judge announced a short recess to review the evidence. Outside the courthouse, reporters interviewed residents.